Recently, I made a really quick tutorial about using Midjourney to generate really believable backgrounds for your green screen footage. And the number one most requested thing was, please show us how you're actually keying your footage, how you're removing the green screen and also keeping as much hair detail as you are. So this is that video. It'll start in a moment. Please forgive me if I seem a little low energy. I was sick and it was like 5 in the morning when I recorded it. But yeah, stick around till the end too, because there's some like gear recommendations and do's and don'ts and a strange disclaimer about the entire process. So that being said, enjoy. All right, so we have our footage in here and we have our footage selected, and we are going to come over to our effects and presets. And we are just going to type in key, and we will see this third option here: key light, key cleaner, advanced spill suppressor, the old triple threat. Most tutorials you see on YouTube are going to be like, do this. So we're going to do that. And it turns on key light and key cleaner. We're going to turn all of that off. Well, actually, we want it. We just want this one on. We want key light on. So key light is on. And, you know, the general approach for keying is that you want to select a color that's, as close to the head and hair as possible. So you have to do as little fudging as necessary. You know, sometimes I don't actually follow that. Sometimes I select, if I don't have stuff that I'm going to be masking out, sometimes I actually select something like way out here. But for the purposes of this, we are going to follow that tried and true knowledge and recommendation. So we obviously we can't just roll with this. This is not looking good. And at this point, I always switch over to screen matte mode, which is just going to show us an alpha view. Black is transparent, white is opaque or not transparent, and we can see that we have problems. We can also see that we have strange problems for some reason, I have moved all of my footage way over, and I don't know why. Okay. The footage is now where it's supposed to be in the frame. And okay, let's deal with all this noise and stuff, because that's going to look bad, especially once you hit play. You're going to see all that stuff. So how do we do that? We're going to come over to our screen matte, and we have two important areas: clip white, clip black. So let's start with the black, because things are not black enough at all. We're going to bring that up 10, bring that up maybe even to 20. Now, it's easy to get kind of freaked out with this, because you bring it up and you go like, oh no, all my hair detail, where's it going? We're not going to worry about that right now. We're going to do a separate pass on the hair, and that's why it's going to look good. And then you can see something that's helpful sometimes is to open up your info panel, and you can just kind of roam around here, and you can see out here, obviously we don't have a solid 0 on everything, which would be black, but we have solid zeros, pretty good. So we're going to roll with that. And then obviously we have this funky stuff going on inside. And so that's when we come to our clip white, and we're just going to do the same thing, pretty much bring that down 20. And now we have they would probably call this a hard matte in the biz. I'm not in the biz, but yeah, you got a nice little hard matte here. And if we come back to our intermediate result, because we're not going to do final result, because that's if you're only using key light and you're doing key light to like do some other fancy stuff. We want intermediate result, and we can see that the background is much cleaner. We can add in, let's do this because the background is simpler. So we have this. It's not looking great. Yeah, you can, based off my face, you can see it's not looking great. And so how do we fix this? Well, let's see what happens when we turn on key cleaner. Key cleaner, you can see, is going to add in it's going to do a little finessing on those edges, but way more important than key cleaner is advanced spill suppressor. So we turn that on, and suddenly all the green that's spilling over is looking different. Now there's two ways to use advanced spill suppressor. You have the standard, and you have ultra. And ultra can be, it can be super helpful if you want to, if you're not happy with what's going on with standard. You also have this luma correction, which can like adjust, how bright or dark the edges of things are. But, in a lot of cases, you can just stick with standard and it does a good job. But feel free to play. So we have that, which has already, taken us a long way from looking like this. And then we have key cleaner, which we can turn on, which sometimes I use, sometimes I don't, depending on the footage. But it's essentially, it does what it says it's going to do. It kind of cleans the key up a little bit. And you can play around with like increasing the edge radius. Like what happens if we go to 20? Essentially, if you crank this up, it's going to be bringing stuff in on the edges, but it's also probably going to do some weird stuff if you start going into high numbers. So we'll keep it at like, I don't know, 15 or something. It's kind of like a nice little addition. It's not like a core component to me, but anyways, so this is looking all right. I don't love this like kind of haloing we have going on out here. And sometimes that's part of key cleaner, but sometimes that's just part of your key. Like you can see that. And if I don't want that, I can come back up to my screen mat and I can do screen shrink grow, and I hold down shift because that's going to give me whole pixel numbers. And I'll just go, crank that in like, 2 pixels. Right. And suddenly there's not as much haloing going on. I can come back to key cleaner, turn that on if I want, and probably increase the contrast on key cleaner as well. Sometimes that helps. So we have that, but that's not what I rely on for getting a really good hair key. What we're going to do next is, I think, the most important part for getting a really believable key, especially when it comes to hair, which is kind of the whole thing that everybody has a really hard time with. And we are going to do this. We're going to duplicate this layer. We're going to turn off, we're actually just going to straight up delete all these things. And we are going to put this in its own pre-comp, which is just a completely, separate, unique composition that's still going to live in the composition that we were just in, but it'll make sense why I'm doing this. So now I am going to just draw a rectangle in this pre-comp. Nope, I'm not going to mask. I just want to draw a rectangle. And you can see that I've already got something that's kind of green, kind of matching, but we will do the whole process. We're going to draw that rectangle. We're going to sample the color close to the head, just like before. And then it's like, okay, what's going on here? We're going to come to our mode, blending mode, and we are going to select subtract. And that is going to give us this look. Not the best look, not exactly what you want. But when we come back to our main footage and we take this layer and we put it underneath our main key, you can see by the red stuff that's poking out, like, oh, okay, we got some stuff. And if maybe we increase the key cleaner radius, maybe, or something, here. Well, okay. So obviously I'm getting a little ahead of myself. We got to do something about this black box back here. So we're going to change our blending mode to add, which you can see it's starting to do good stuff for their hair, but then we have all this weird stuff going on here. So now we're going to add another mask on top of this. So we'll just hit Q for, a vector shape here, and we'll just draw a box. Yeah, generally around my head and where it's going to be moving around and stuff like that. Also, yeah, okay, good. So we have that. Let's come back in and look at the detail on the hair. So if I happened to have purple hair, I wouldn't have to do anything on this. But since I don't, we have to change the hue. So we'll come over to our effects and presets and type in hue and click on hue and saturation. And, for the color of hair that I have, I can actually just drop the saturation and the job is done. But if, you are working with somebody who has more saturated hair than I do, you can play with the, adjusting the hue here. You can play around with lightness, although I wouldn't, because you're going to have blend mode problems. So don't do that. But yeah, for my purposes, I can just drop the saturation, and suddenly we have a ton more hair data back there. But we also have a little problem. You see what's going on? You see that little stuff popping in over here? That is because the overlay, like the blend mode that we had applied to make that background black, was not the perfect exact color for the entire key. It was sampled from like up here. So this data is starting to poke through in a way that we don't want. So all we have to do for that is, grab like levels or curves, come in here, and then we just are going to make our blacks blacker. We want to do it ideally without losing a bunch of, a bunch of detail in the hair. So now we still have more hair data. We have more detail going on. We did lose a little bit by having to increase that contrast. So that is, sorry about that. Oops. That is the benefit of having like a really perfectly lit green screen that has no variation in color, because you're not going to have to deal with things like this. But, I'm just trying to give you guys a look at how I have approached this in the past. And so now, let me make sure my sound is off. When I hit play, it's really slow, which goes back to a little bit of my preamble of like, if you don't have to do this process, don't do it, because it's complicated, it's resource intensive, it's time intensive. But yeah, there you go. All right, so yeah, that's the gist of how I have done this in the past and on previous videos. Obviously, this is me working quickly to try to not drag things out. There's a lot more tweaking and obsessing that has gone on for me in the past with this, to try to get things, perfect and just right. There are also more approaches, like this is just one way, and it's a very simple way. When it comes to how people do this in like a real Hollywood VFX workflow, they mask out a ton of individual things, and it's kind of crazy. Like they will just do a pass on the hair and mask that out, and then motion track all that. They'll just do a pass on the body. They'll just do a pass on, they'll do everything they can to have a perfect key. And that everything they can part is extremely complicated. So you can go down that route if you want or need to. But this is kind of like a mini version of that. That's like a little bit more advanced and yields good results. Final note, I was just going through the edit and I realized I forgot a pretty important part: garbage matte. So if we go back to our screen matte here, like we got all this junk, and we have this stand that I don't want in there.
the rookie mistake is to be like, okay, I have to get everything black. So I just have to crank this up until everything's black. You don't need to do that unless if your subject is like, for whatever reason, moving out to these edges, then yeah, you need to do that. But if it's just, somebody's sitting here, you don't need to worry about that. All you have to do is, let's go back to this result. Actually, maybe it'll work like this. Let's see. Hit G on your keyboard to select the pen tool. And we are going to just create a mask, or a garbage matte, if you will. You can see actually over here, we have a little bit of funk. So we want to be kind of close to the edge of this. And then we'll just go around me, around the subject. I don't move around a lot, so we don't need to be super careful. And then once we do that, if we come out of our screen matte and go to our intermediate result, you can see just, what the mask did. If we go none, you can see that it took that standout, but also it's going to have removed a bunch of like weird noisy data that you don't want in your frame. So anyways, that's garbage matte. I forgot to include that earlier. Hope that helps. Thanks. All right, so I promised a bit of a disclaimer about this process at the beginning of the video. Here's the disclaimer. If you don't have to do green screen, don't do it. It's time consuming. It'll bog down your computer. It'll slow down your process. Even with the help of this video and probably many others, you'll still be pulling your hair out and asking yourself why you decided to do this. But if you're still dead set on it, a few more helpful tips. One, whatever you do not buy a green screen backdrop that is cheap and shiny. I've done it. It's horrible. Just don't do it. I now use this one that I'm super happy with. It's kind of fuzzy. It does a good job of capturing and dispersing the light in a smooth way. So don't skimp on that. You will regret it. And then also, again, just totally candidly, the footage you're seeing me use is from a really nice camera. It's from a Sony FX3. It's thousands of dollars. It handles this type of footage really well, low noise, etc. Also, there's nerdy stuff about like 10-bit color that makes green screen easier. So, your mileage may vary as you have like gone through the process and you're going like, wow, this doesn't look as good as what Andy was showing. What's wrong? That might be it too. Here's a look at my lighting setup. Super simple. We have one big lantern softbox lighting me. We have a little bounce card, just a white piece of cardboard that I'm using to give a little bit of fill light on the other side of my face. And then we have a tube light going horizontally behind my head to throw some edge light and hair light. That's it. That's all. Okay. Links below.